Okay. I'm leaving the fan on in the background because it's kind of warm. I'm kind of warm. We got we got beat to crap at work today, and I am exhausted. But I kind of wanted to sit and talk a little. So my voice has been sort of on the out. So I will try to enunciate and be as clear as I can. But I got that gravelly back, which really kind of screws up the idea of wanting to do a TED Talk anytime soon until it's healed. But anyways, so I sat down at my desk and I started thinking and talking to myself about what I might, and I got round and round in religion. All right, I'm done apologizing for my own beliefs. I know why I believe what I believe, and what I believe is a good thing. It's still my belief because it's my vernacular, it's my language in which I am describing my experience and my logical conclusions about life. So yeah, my words are no more or less valid than anyone else's. But I think they tend to focus on the points, the common points we all carry when we discuss ideas about life. Religions have been, they have spent millennia trying to tell us what life is. And they have been distorted and bastardized and taken advantage of. And the presentation of the Christian religion seems so askew from its original intent these days. And I do not want to diminish anybody's devotion to the religion. Any devotion to anything good is a good thing. I'm really more referring to those people who fall into the religion and then start talking when their brain and shut their brains off, shut their hearts off, and the reason this is impacting to me is because Christian religion was fundamental in my delusions and my psychosis. I think it happens a lot to people. People who become delusional end up in the Christian religion because it is so intangible. The religion itself is kept alive based on people's conviction of words, not truth. The Christian religion got caught up in traditions and forgot points. They got a little too big for their britches, I guess you could say. And a lot of bastardizing of the doctrine and the ideology of Christian religion over the millennia. This country was raised in Christianity. I mean, a bunch of people from Europe decided to come over to this country so that they could pursue religious freedom, and then turned around and imposed that religion upon others. A little bit of a hypocrisy involved in that, but like I said, though, people who are devoted to the religion itself. Actually, it's not the religion even. The religion has merit in the sense that it creates community. It creates congregation. And so people come together for good reasons, positive, uplifting reasons. So, I mean, it's still a home to good stuff. But the ideology of Christianity is really quite simple. And it's just full of a bunch of words, bunch of excessive, unnecessary words. Actually, it's quite exemplified in the New Testament. The Old Testament, at a time when humanity was seeking safety and comfort, they found safety and comfort in a bunch of rules and a God who was strong and protective. And, so they could feel safe in life. That God didn't exist, by the way. Still doesn't. And then the New Testament came around because, we'd softened up a little bit. We'd become a little more agrarian. We're a little bit more congregated together and there was a little less threat. Not that there wasn't still threat in the world, and we were deciding that our God needed to be a little softer and gentler. So Christ arose on the scene. And just so you know, and I can't give you the particulars on this because it's been a while since I heard and read this, but the story of Christ exists in cultures that predate Jesus' life. That story. So much, so similar that in present day it would be considered plagiarism. The Christian religion was founded on good things. The only thing is they forgot to say, wait, we're not the only ones who can say these good things in certain ways. Quite fundamentally, God is love. God doesn't exist outside of the fact that love exists. There is no singular being with a will that chooses and determines the fate of the world and humanity and all that. The fate of humanity is based on the expression of love. That is the determinant of the fate of humanity. And the unforgivable sin is to not forgive. The unforgivable. The Revelations. I had read a bit on the Bible because it was a part of my delusions. So I've read quite a bit on it. I haven't read the whole thing because after a while you can only read so many begats before your head starts to spin. But I've read enough on it. And I used to read Revelations out of fear, because I thought it was going to explain to me how I was going to go to hell. Until I realized that hell doesn't actually exist. I'm going to have to do another one on that particular this because I'm already running on to 8 minutes, and so we'll call this just a primer to more specific discussion on the religion itself. So again, I don't want people to think I'm down or talking down to the religion. I am talking down to some of the people who say that they are these devout, knowing, religious, pious people who know better than I'm supposed to know. And I spent quite some time having to reconcile the religion when I realized that it was more a cause of pain in my life than it was any benefit. But the basic principle is love, and you'll find that in every religious text, Jewish and Islam. But they seem to forget unconditional love, by definition, unconditional love. If you consider the notion of unconditional love, the terms forgiveness and all that no longer apply because it's inherent in the simple concept of unconditional love. To be loved unconditionally means to be forgiven ahead of time. And I'm sorry, but Christ didn't come here to forgive our sins. The story of Christ and his coming here, he came here to tell us we didn't need to be forgiven because of unconditional love. We were inherently forgiven. We were like a bunch of children on the playground learning how to get along, not to be chastised and thrown into the pit of despair for eternity by an unforgiving God, which is a conflict right there. I thought I was going to have more of a point than this. Maybe there's a point in here somewhere. I'll keep wandering around until it gets too long and see if a point finally arises. I think I always am going to be compelled to talk about the Christian religion simply because of the part it played in my life, and because there are still enough people out there saying it's the only way, and then I have a person in my Facebook feed that is constantly, I don't know how I ended up being friends with her, but she's constantly talking about how the end and rapture, which isn't even in the Bible, and all that fundamentalist Christian rhetoric, and people are listening to it. I hope they're not believing it, but because it's quite simple. There's only two truths in life that we deal with: the dynamic, love, and everything that's born of it, and fear, and everything that's born of it. Fear begat, or produces. Apparently, I'm in the begat. Fear produces anger. Fear produces deflection. Fear produces hate. And anger and hate produce evil. The expression thereof. There is no source of evil but fear. And fear is a misunderstanding of love. We take a point of love, misunderstand it, become afraid of it. We put a bubble in the space that the love is supposed to be. We wrap that bubble in a diluted explanation, and then we try to incorporate that incongruent. Actually, it's the third time I've used it now. No, second time. Try to include that into our life, and then it becomes conflicted, and then our thought process and our emotions become conflicted, and we live in conflict because we're afraid. Because I know that behind every fear, I wrote this somewhere, is a truth that is love. There is no fear that exists within it. It does not have love behind it. But we have people out there saying, oh, hell, damnation, eternal suffering. I tell you what, when I attempted suicide back in 98 at the age of 31, I was convinced I was going to the Christian hell. I was convinced. And it just, I was so tired and it seemed so hopeless, I just gave up. And I said, I might as well just go. And because it had been instilled in me what the hell it was supposed to be, that was an incredibly terrifying experience. And all for naught. All right, well, maybe that's close enough to a point. It's getting later, and I don't want to ramble too much. So, everybody listening to this, you all have a good night.
Have you ever needed love, only to feel forsaken from above? Have you ever built a house of cards